This video will contain spoilers for Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, which were released over the previous 2 days. You've been warned. I hope I convinced at least some of you that I was going to skip Hitmontop, but of course, I'm not going to. By the way, this is the first video in daily December, so from here on out, there is going to be one video fully produced every day until the end of the month, all the way to the 31st, and we might even get a bonus video on January 1st if I have enough time. And believe me, that is a big if right now. These videos take a lot of energy and effort to make. Okay, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. Now let's talk about Hitmontop. When I think about this thing, I remember that it is based on a spinning top, and it also evolves when Tyrogue's attack and defense are equal. So I figured that this was supposed to be the more balanced version of the two, with Hitmonchan being more defensive and Hitmonlee being more offensive, with Hitmontop falling somewhere in the middle. But that isn't how it works. Hitmontop is both slower than the other two, and it has lower attack than the other two. The only reason this Pokemon feels more balanced, in quotation marks, is that its attack and defense are exactly the same. So for base stats, we have 50 HP, 95 attack and defense, 35 special attack, 110 special defense, and 70 speed. All of the Hitmons share the same HP, special attack, and special defense, so those stats are unchanged from the other two. They all have a medium fast growth rate, and I'm using Hardy Natures exclusively in my first attempt series in Pokemon FireRed and Platinum. Something that is different though is the abilities. Hitmonchan had one of my favorites, Keen Eye, preventing accuracy loss. Hitmonlee had what might be one of my new favorites, Limber, which prevents it from getting paralyzed. Both of those abilities are incredibly important in solo challenges. And Hitmontop gets Intimidate. Normally, this ability is pretty good. It lowers the opponent's attack when Hitmontop comes into play. That said, in a solo challenge where I can't switch out and switch back in, Intimidate has less utility, plus it only affects one of the opposing Pokemon, and it also prints a bunch of extra text every battle, which will slow things down. I think this is one of the abilities that is quite good in other formats, and honestly not very good in this format. And that's when the player uses it, because when the opponent has Intimidate, it is fantastic in the solo format. There are so many bosses where I wish I could just remove this ability from the game entirely. Okay, so the move pool is also different. Hitmontop starts with Revenge and Rolling Kick, a pretty good starting set. Then it gets Focus Energy at level 7, Pursuit at 13, Quick Attack at 19. Beyond that, things kind of go downhill. Triple Kick, Rapid Spin, Counter, Agility, Detect, and Endeavor. Luckily through TM and HM, it gets the good move, Bulk Up, which is so good, and I've hopefully made a case that it is broken over this year's videos. Beyond that, it also learns some good coverage moves, Earthquake, Dig, and Rock Slide, and it also gets Brick Break for reliable same type attack bonus damage. Okay, we're gonna get to spoilers now. So over the last 2 videos, Hitmonlee claimed the 2nd spot in my first playthrough tier list, and Hitmonchan got the 4th spot. Both of them are one ranking behind another amazing Psychic type. To me, it feels like there's a genuine battle between these two typings for supremacy in these games. The Psychic type gets Calm Mind, a fantastic setup move, but it comes a little bit later in the playthrough. The Fighting type gets Bulk Up, it comes earlier, but in general, Fighting type is just a little bit worse when compared with the Psychic type. Although I should say that Hitmonlee is in 2nd place, and Mewtwo, the amazing legendary, is in 1st place, so Hitmonlee did very well. Maybe I shouldn't be ripping on the Fighting type so much. I actually think it's kind of fantastic in these games. Primeape is so far down the list just because I forgot Bulk Up during its playthrough. And yes, Fighting types really do rely on this move. Because of the synergy between the type and the move, I figured that Hitmontop was going to have no problems with this playthrough. And I was wrong, but we're going to get to that later. Because in the early game, Hitmontop is very capable. While I do complete some optional battles, I don't think I really needed many of them. At only level 10, I feel capable of defeating Brock. Right away, Intimidate lowers Geodude's attack, which is good. I take less damage from Tackle, but Rolling Kick is doing more than half, so I two-shot. This is going to be incredibly simple. Next is Onix. It is faster than Hitmontop, so I'm going to be moving second. It hits with Tackle. I then use Revenge, taking it down to red health, and after surviving another Tackle in green health, I will note, I knock out Brock's ace and earn myself the first badge and an attack boost. Alright, Mount Moon is next. This is normally where I pick up Thief, but instead I'm going to battle optional trainers. I don't really need Thief because I have Pursuit, which has the same base power. Also, I don't want to be using special moves with the Hitmons. I do a total of 4 optional battles, finishing with this Hiker, and then the 2 mandatory battles, the Rocket as well as Super Nerd. On the other side of the cave, there are 2 move tutors, this guy and this guy. They teach Mega Punch and Mega Kick. I figured that grabbing these moves now is a good idea, but it turns out that Hitmontop does not learn Mega Punch, so I'm just gonna grab Mega Kick in the place of Focus Energy and then proceed to Cerulean City. You'll notice here my thought process at work. I go into the gym, I fight the swimmer and the junior trainer before Misty. I think she's a junior trainer in these games, I actually don't remember. She isn't mandatory anymore, so I very rarely fight her. After that though, I decided it wasn't quite time to take on the water type specialist, so I head north to fight the rival on Nugget Bridge. Pidgeotto is first. Actually, this thing's kind of a menace. Maybe I shouldn't have come here. Luckily, Intimidate cuts its attack. Then it goes for Sand Attack, lowering my accuracy. I go for Revenge, which is currently my best move. It has slightly higher accuracy when compared with Rolling Kick. I knock it out over 2 turns and move on to the Abra, which can't do anything because its only move is Teleport. Pursuit finishes it in 2 turns, and now he only has 2 Pokemon left over. Rattata is of course going to be easy, provided I hit. Quick Attack does a little bit of damage, and Revenge does land. So only Charmander is left. It really can't do much against me. That is one big advantage the Hitmons have starting in Generation 2. They all have fantastic special defense stats, and that feels really weird after you play a lot of Generation 1, where their special stats are just absolutely trash. Actually, that makes me curious. I wonder how Hitmontop would do in a backport of Pokemon Yellow. Maybe that's something I'll have to mix into my 2025 season when I start planning it over the next month or so. The first thing I do on Route 25 is fight these 2 trainers to move the one guy out of the way so I can grab the Secret Power TM. This is a far more reliable move when compared with Mega Kick. Also, that move only has 5 PP, so I'm gonna get rid of it now. Next is Misty's gym. I've already fought the trainers, so let's take on the gym leader. Staryu is up first. Intimidate wastes time, and then I'm faster than the Starfish, so I move first and one-shot with Secret Power. Next is Starmie. It's faster, but Water Pulse can't do very much damage. Maybe I could have beat her earlier on. I end up getting a critical hit, so her ace goes down quite quickly, and I earn myself the 2nd badge. Okay, time for Hitmontop's moveset to improve. I defeat the Rocket and get the TM for Dig, which I'm going to teach in the place of Revenge. We are starting to get a quite diverse set of moves now, and it's just going to keep improving. On the SSN, I grab Rest. I'm not going to use it right away, but I'm keeping it for later. Of course, you know I love this move, and it's also useful to have Recovery in the late game. I also grab Brick Break, which is a far better move than Rolling Kick, so I'll teach that now. Then I crush the rival. He has a bunch of normal types at this point in the game. Kadabra has evolved, but Hitmontop is faster. I'm drawing attention to all the speed matchups for a reason. It's nice to one-shot in this case, one-shot the Raticate, as well as the well, just barely not the Charmeleon. It does survive. I can't believe it did. Luckily, Ember isn't able to do very much, and I defeat the rival. Okay, get your insults prepared. It is time for Lieutenant Surge. This guy is so bad. His first Pokemon is essentially just a Pokeball. Now, I'm not able to one-shot it, which is a bit embarrassing, I will admit. I use Secret Power for some reason. I'm not sure why. I should have just gone for Brick Break. When I do, I get a critical hit and knock it out in 1 turn. Then I choose Secret Power against the Pikachu, which makes sense because it doesn't make contact. After that, we have Raichu. It sets up Double Team. I miss a Dig as a result. It hits Thunder Wave. My Cherry Berry cures the status condition. Dig misses for a 2nd time, but with my 3rd attempt, I finally hit, bringing the Raichu down to red health. Now, I can't believe what happens from here. I continue to miss because of Double Team, and eventually, with Shockwave, the Raichu knocks Hitmontop out. Okay, maybe you should all insult me instead? This is kind of an embarrassing fight. If I just use Brick Break and don't give it time to set up Double Team, I one-shot. So in this case, I fell victim to the super effective trap. I should not be using the ground type move. It only has 8 more effective power when compared with Brick Break. And Double Team is definitely the Raichu's best move. So I learned my lesson. Surge is defeated now after one embarrassing reset. This badge gives me a boost to my speed stat, which is very important for Hitmontop as it is the slowest of the Hitmons. Inside Rock Tunnel, I use the tutor to teach Rock Slide in the place of Pursuit. No more special moves for me. And then on the other side of Lavender Town, I pick up the TM for Return. Inside the Rocket Hideout, it's a good time to start bemoaning the fact that the enemy has Intimidate. This grunt especially is annoying because he has an Ekans and an Arbok with the ability, so your attack stat gets trashed by the time you're defeating him. Luckily, Hitmontop has no problems here. I should mention, just at the end of this battle, that the back sprite for this thing is just perfect. Honestly, excellent. Giovanni's next. He's pretty bad against fighting types. All of his Pokemon take super effective damage from my same type attack bonus moves, so Brick Break one-shots everything until the Kangaskhan. It survives, uses Tail Whip in true Giovanni fashion, and then I knock it out. I make a quick stop in the department store to buy some protein, 3 in total to improve my attack stat, and then I go up against the rival in Pokemon Tower. There's not really much he can do here. I am over-leveled by this point, level 33 against his level 25 Pidgeotto, so I can just one-shot using Rock Slide. I think I said Pidgeot earlier in the video. These two are so easy to mix up. I always just think because Pidgeotto is the longest name that it should be the final stage of the evolution. Does anyone else fall into this trap? I'm sure at least some of you do. The Gyarados has Intimidate here, but it doesn't really matter because it comes in 4th, and its moveset is also trash. With Thrash and Bite specifically. That's it. After that, I one-shot the Charmeleon with a critical hit from Brick Break. Okay, Cycling Road, Safari Zone, and then I fly back to Cerulean City. I wasn't entirely sure where to go next, but I guess Erica makes sense. She's not that good, but I am going to prepare for her by upgrading Secret Power to Brick Break. Okay, Return does more than half to Victory Bell, and then it paralyzes me with Stun Spore. I hate that move. That is one of the worst moves. Why can't Hitmontop have Limber like Hitmonlee? I want that ability. I don't want this ability anymore. Intimidate has not been helpful so far. Luckily, I'm able to knock out her Victory Bell. Next is Tangela. It goes down in 2 hits as well. It looks like pretty much all of her Pokemon are going to be 2 hits, unless the Vileplume is somehow able to survive after a Giga Drain. It brings Hitmontop down to red health. I waited with bated breath here, hoping that Return hits. And it does, so my battle against Erica is not an embarrassment like my battle against Surge. Okay, time for Silph. I'm going to do the guy with Machoke first, grabbing the rare candy after him, and I'm also going to battle a whole bunch of other trainers to level up. At the end of all of this, I grab the TM for Bulk Up. Okay, are you ready for this playthrough to fundamentally change? Well, first I have to make a choice. Which move do I give up? Brick Break, Rock Slide, Return, or Dig? This is good type coverage, and of all of these moves, I think the one that I want the least is Dig. I can teach this again if I want with TMs from the department store, plus its base power of 60 is really falling off by this point in the game. Return is just always quite good. Brick Break is same type attack bonus damage, so I don't want to give up either of them, and Rock Slide gives me coverage against flying types, and I think holding on to that is going to be important for later in the game when Lance is essentially a flying type specialist. I didn't want to fight the rival though. I want to back out of this area and instead go to Koga's gym next. Here's some footage of Juggler Kirk. He has a bunch of psychic types, and Hitmontop is faster than all of them. Even the Kadabra. That feels great. See, this thing, it's not going to have problems with speed. We have badge boosts, we have EVs on our side, and the ability to overlevel. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Okay, now with that confidence, it is time to face Koga. This battle is incredibly straightforward. I'm going to set up on the coughing until it poisons me. I have a Pecha Berry to counter out the status condition, so I can get some free setup here. Well, kind of free because it can lower my accuracy, but I figured that 1 or 2 accuracy drops wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I get set up enough to one-shot all of his remaining Pokemon. After +2, I decide to attack, one-shotting the coughing, but Muck, I miss, and then it sets up Acid Armor. This allows it to survive one of my hits and set up another turn with Acid Armor. I miss again, it uses Sludge, and burns my Pecha Berry. I got a little bit worried at this point because Koga starts using a Hyper Potion when I fail to knock out, but Hitmontop comes through with a clutch critical hit, finishing the Muck in a single turn from full health. From there I one-shot the coughing, the final wheezing comes in, it does survive, and it's doing a little bit of damage, also lowering my accuracy. Koga uses another Hyper Potion, but 2 returns land, and his ace goes down. Okay, small embarrassing moment here, not as bad as Surge of course. In this case, I go over to the water thinking I can surf, and then I realize I don't actually have Lapras yet. I'm so used to playing yellow where I get the Squirtle after Lieutenant Surge. Anyways, that's not the case, so I'll go back to Silph and face the rival now. I don't want to spend time catching a Pokemon. Hitmontop's level 44, I have Bulk Up, this should be possible. One key thing is that I don't want to set up past +3 because then the Pidgeot is going to use Whirlwind to switch me out. I just go up to +2. This is really only neutral attack because the Pidgeot used Feather Dance against me. This move is so annoying. I knock out the Pidgeot to avoid it, and then on the Execute, I had to finish it as fast as possible so that it didn't hit Stun Spore multiple times. I only have 1 berry. Beyond that, he sends in Alakazam, but Hitmontop has 8 more speed so I can one-shot with Return. From there, the remainder of the battle's pretty straightforward. I'm able to one-shot the Charizard with Rock Slide, and all that's left is Gyarados. It comes too late into the battle for Intimidate to be relevant. With Giovanni easily defeated, now it's time to take on Blaine. I wanted to do this one before Sabrina, just because her team is quite fast, and I also want the special boost from his badge to improve my special defense before I take her on. This is the first major battle where Intimidate is really annoying. Both the Growlithe and the Arcanine have the ability. My thought here was I can leverage Hitmontop's high special defense to set a bulk up against the weak Growlithe, then I can sweep the rest of his team with super effective Rock Slide. The thing is, surprisingly, the Growlithe is still doing decent damage with its Fire Blasts. I was expecting a little bit less, maybe it's doing about a fifth or a sixth, but it's doing around a quarter with each hit, plus it has a chance to burn me. Now, one thing I was not paying attention to is the fact that the Growlithe does have the move Roar. This is lower priority, so if you get to +3 it's fine, but if you try to push things to +4 it's going to roar you out and ruin your setup, which is what happens. I take the reset there just because I don't want to play out the rest of the battle from low health with no setup. Now you might be wondering why not deposit your HM users. Honestly, it just takes time. I don't want to waste the time going into the Pokemon Center and opening the PC. Then I have to go back there and withdraw them later on into the playthrough if I want to fly to any other location on the map. I can just play around the roar, not setting up past +3, and then try to sweep with +2 due to Intimidate. I'm using Brick Break for accuracy on the Growlithe as well as the Ponyta because they're both very weak. I thought that maybe the Rapidash would also go down because it's not that defensive, so I also go for Brick Break, and it does finish it. Okay, time for Arcanine. Can I knock this thing out after another Intimidate? I use Rock Slide to increase my power, and it misses. Of course it misses. Rock moves are just terrible. Blaine's Ace hits with Fire Blast, and Hitmontop faints. Okay, let's try that again. Around the same place that I was in the last battle, this time Rock Slide successfully hits. Look at this. I am faster than the Arcanine. I'm also faster than the Pokemon with Rapid in its name, by a significant margin too. Hitmontop's speed is really doing great things so far in this playthrough. Anyways, I'm getting a bit distracted. Unlike Hitmontop's speed, we have slowed this footage down way too much. Rock Slide does enough damage and Arcanine faints. Okay, over the last 2 days, I have forgotten to fight Sabrina with both Hitmons, but this time I go right for her gym. I did not forget today, and it feels great. Well, it feels great, at least for now, walking over there, because I don't really know how this fight is gonna go. This might be the first time that my speed is actually a liability. I haven't yet memorized Sabrina's speed stats in FireRed, so let's go into the battle and see how Hitmontop stacks up. Okay, check this out. These are the speed stats. Kadabra, 84, Mr. Mime, 71, Venomoth, 73, and Alakazam, 108, which is exactly the same as Hitmontop has at the beginning of the battle, but I am about to level up. By the time I knock out Mr. Mime, my Hitmontop has 111 speed, so I'm gonna move first against the Alakazam. I hit with Return, and her ace falls to a single hit. Well, her penultimate ace, because her ultimate ace is Venomoth. And this thing is a dual psychic type, so Psybeam does 8 times damage. I need to be very careful. And I walk the tightrope of damage, just barely dealing enough to the steel type with Return to knock it out, even though my attack was resisted. Inside the Viridian City gym, I have to face Warren. In many of these solo challenges, he is a problem, but in this case he isn't. Well, not from a battle perspective. At the very end of the fight, the Nidoqueen has Poison Point, and this inflicts the status condition on me. I open my inventory to heal and realize I don't have any antidotes, so I guess I'm going back to the Pokemon Center. By the way, this happens a lot. I should probably buy like 6 antidotes or something. They're fairly cheap, and in FireRed, having them hanging around for the Poison Point users is probably a good idea to prevent this kind of time loss. After getting healed up, I'm ready to face Giovanni. Now, I made fun of Surge in this video, but Giovanni actually might be worse than him. I'm hoping that that's the case. 2 of his Pokemon do have Poison Point, but I instead wanted to draw your attention to the other Pokemon on his team, like Rhyhorn that has Lightning Rod. Why does Lightning Rod make sense? I get if you have a team of diverse Pokemon switching in Rhyhorn when they're going for an electric attack, say against one of your flying or water type Pokemon, then you get a special attack boost. But just in general, I don't really feel like this ability makes sense on Rhyhorn. Like, it's already a ground type, type, it is neutralizing electric type moves completely anyway, and its special attack is so low that why would you want a boost? Anyways, that's all I've got to say for Giovanni. He's easy to defeat, so now let's face the rival on Route 22. Actually, I've gone into this fight prematurely before. I'm probably going to want to use rare candies here, so I'll level up to 52 before doing that to preserve some of my experience. To this point in the run, I have collected a total of 10 rare candies, and I'm going to use 8 of them now to bring Hitmontop up to level 60. Okay, Pidgeot's first. I'm going to set up bulk up here once. I don't want to push it though, because it has Feather Dancing and lower my attack. It goes for Wing Attack turn 1, which is perfect, and then I use Brick Break to knock it out, because I am faster than the Flying type. Flying types usually feel like they should be fast Pokemon, but in this case they're not. Surprisingly, Hitmontop is faster than all of the rivals Pokemon, including the Alakazam and the Charizard. FireRed is not a game like Emerald where all the enemy Pokemon are extremely slow either. There are a lot of fast threats, so Hitmontop is just holding up really well so far in this playthrough. Obviously, nothing is going to go wrong. I knock out the Alakazam in one hit, the Charizard in one hit because I've kept Rock Slide. From there, his Pokemon go downhill. Rhyhorn, Execute, and finally Gyarados. And while Intimidate does activate, I just use Bulk Up on the turn it uses Rain Dance and then one shot with Rock Slide. Right before the league, I replace my Lumberry, grabbing this one just outside of Indigo Plateau. There's also a Max Elixir north of here, which can be helpful if you run out of healing items during the second league round. Technically, that's not a part of my timed portion of the challenge right now, but I am completing it and making a post-game tier list, so I will complete that after we defeat the Elite Four proper. Lorelei is first. I expect this one to be very easy. The Dugong loves to set up Hail, sometimes Safeguard. It's just generally kind of useless, and even when Ice Beam hits, it does so little damage because of Hitmontop's special defense. I go up to +2, and I figured this was going to be enough. While the Slowbro, which comes in next, does resist my fighting type moves, Return is doing enough damage, and I can knock it out over 2 turns. Brick Break one-shots the Cloyster, which is awesome. It also one-shots the Jinx, leaving only Lapras. This Pokemon is fairly bulky, but even in that case, Hitmontop just has enough damage, and it goes down to a single hit. Okay, next is Bruno. He leads with an Onix, a terrible Pokemon if you didn't already know. That said, it does have Roar. I have forgotten that in the past, so I'm not going to set up too much here. I go to +1, and then I start my sweep. Brick Break one-shots the first Onix, as well as the second one. Why did he send this in second? It's also weak to me. His fighting types aren't, but they're physically fairly frail, so I'm able to knock them out in one hits as well, leading to only the Machamp. It does survive, but then it goes for Scary Face. Notably, I'm going to mention this again, I am faster than all of Bruno's Pokemon before the Scary Face. After it, the Machamp is able to move first, but it doesn't do nearly enough damage and Hitmontop gets another easy win. Okay, Ghost-type Specialist Agatha. You would expect this to be very difficult, and this is one of the rare exceptions where Hitmontop is slower than Pokemon. Not the first Gengar, not the Golbat, not the Haunter, but it is slower than the final Gengar, which has 150 speed. Here's the thing, look at Agatha's moves. They're just not that good. I can kind of set up on the first Gengar for free. It has no way of switching me out, and it just doesn't use Toxic. I get to +2, and then I start attacking. I really want to knock it out quickly now so that it doesn't poison me. It takes some time because of the double teams, but eventually I hit and it goes down. From there I one-shot the Golbat, one-shot the Haunter, and then her final Gengar comes in. As if this is Generation 1, it prioritizes its Psychic move. Hypnosis puts Hitmontop to sleep, but I've prepared for that with a Chesto Berry. I wake up, hit Rock Slide, and her ace does not go down. It does survive on red health. I can't believe that. Gengar has really bad defense and attack. I figured that my physical move would knock it out, but I was unable to. Still, it just misses its next Hypnosis, and then I knock it out with 2 Rock Slides. That leaves only the Arbok, and Return gets the job done over 2 turns. Agatha wasn't an issue. Well, she wasn't an issue the first time around. Let's move on to Lance. Now, he's a trainer that has one really fast Pokemon, the Aerodactyl. It has 173 speed, it's also a flying type, and it has Wing Attack, which is super effective against fighting types. Both Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee were not faster than it, so Hitmontop is in no different of a position for this battle, at least in terms of speed. Against the Gyarados, which has Intimidate, I set up to +2 attack and +3 defense. I figured this would be enough to survive the Aerodactyl's Wing Attack, and to knock out everything else with one hit from Rock Slide or from Brick Break. I've also taken a decent amount of damage, so I don't want to push my setup any further. I knock out Gyarados in one hit. Aerodactyl does do damage with wing attack, but not nearly enough because I've increased my defense. However, then the Dragonite comes in and it just barely survives Rock Slide and knocks Hitmontop out. Okay, there's a really simple way to win here. If I use my 3 rare candies and go up to level 67, it will improve my damage enough that I should one-shot the Dragonite even with +2. Although things can go my way because the Gyarados can just kind of sit there and do nothing, choosing moves like Dragon Rage. I have a Citrus Berry now to heal a little bit of health, and I'm able to get to +3 attack instead. Because of this, I easily survive the Aerodactyl's hit and sweep Lance's team. With him finished, it's time for the last battle of the official portion of the playthrough. Let's take on the champion. Up first is Pidgeot, and I make the choice to knock it out right away using Rock Slide. I get a flinch turn 1, which is perfect, and take it down for free, not having my attack lowered by Feather Dance. Unfortunately for me, next is Alakazam, and I don't really know what I'm going to do against this thing. Hitmontop is slower by 5 points. Now I make what I think is a mistake here, choosing Bulk Up to increase my physical attack. Why would this make sense? The Alakazam is just going to 2-shot using Psychic, but it's actually not going to. It's going to choose Future Sight on the second turn, allowing me to knock it out with Return. The question is, will I survive the damage when it eventually occurs, or am I going to miss Rock Slide on the Charizard? I don't. It goes down. Executor comes in next. I have to go for a Return here. It doesn't get the one-shot, but my Lumberry wakes me up from Sleep Powder, and then Future Sight misses. Yes, this can happen. As a result, I knock out his second Psychic type, move on to the Rhydon, which goes down to Brick Break, and all that's left is Gyarados. Intimidate lowers my attack. I use Rock Slide, inflict a flinch, and finish the champion. Hitmontop clocks in with a time of 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 36 seconds, with 4 resets, 0 blackouts at level 68, with a game time of 4 hours and 1 minute. Okay, so this is a really good time for Hitmontop. I did not expect this. It gets a placement just behind Mr. Mime in the A tier, and I mean just behind Mr. Mime. It was 9 seconds slower. If I compare it to Hitmonchan, I think this is largely because of experience. If I played Hitmonchan and Hitmontop in reverse order, so Hitmontop first and then Hitmonchan second, I think that Hitmonchan would have got the better time, and Hitmontop roughly would have been around where Hitmonchan is in the tier list currently. Experience is just something I can't really factor out of these playthroughs. In the end, it is a part of my format, and I've had to make peace with that. So for now, Hitmontop is going to have the 4th overall ranking in the tier list. That said, let's go into the post game now and see how Hitmontop performs with this section. I would say in general, we're seeing a trend that fighting types just don't really perform as well in this section of the game when compared with the prior section. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan got an A tier and B tier finish respectively, and water types like Golduck, Kabutops, Omastar, and Dugong are really giving the fighting type a run for its money when considering the second attempt through the league. Lorelei is first. She's actually worse in this second battle, mostly because her Dugong just loves to set up double team, giving me free setup. I'll just take the time during this battle to mention the fact that I restart the timer after the credits play from the first section of the game, so that's why it's so low now. Timing this section independently gives me better segmentation between the main section of the game and then the post game, so that we can evaluate Pokemon's performances in each segment rather than all together as one giant block. I will admit that there is a little bit of bias towards the first section of the game because Pokemon likely will have used their rare candies there, so I don't have access to them anymore, which can be a major drawback if a Pokemon struggles with the second league attempt and less so with the first league attempt. This is an artifact of my format, and for now I'm fine with it. Eventually I will start doing runs through the entire game all the way until the end of the post league as one continuous segment. I have no plans to start that anytime soon. I really want to finish this series first, which is all my first attempts with this format. Anyways, back to Lorelei. After setting up, I sweep her entire team. Yeah, very simple as expected. Next is Bruno, and I genuinely think that in FireRed, he is the most difficult trainer in the entire game for most Pokemon. His Steelix cause so many issues if you don't have an answer to them, but Hitmontop of course does. After I get set up, his team is simple, so that's another clean sweep. And that is where the fun ends and the pain begins, because Agatha is next. Now I want you to look at my Hitmontop speed at level 73. It is 168. Her first Gengar has 170 speed, the Crobat has 177 speed, and the final Gengar has 180 speed. The only two Pokemon that I can move first against are the Misdreavus and the Arbok. In the first fight, you'll see that I sneak in one bulk up with a miss from Hypnosis on the initial Gengar. But after going for the move a second time, Hitmontop falls asleep, and even with the leftovers, Psychic is a two-shot. I brought the Chesto Berry into the fight to heal the status condition, and I get set up to +2, tanking one Psychic. Then Hypnosis misses, I go for Rock Slide, and it doesn't knock the Gengar out. I will note, just barely. It seems like at this level I will be able to roll enough damage eventually. At level 75 it's probably going to be very likely, and at level 78 likely a guarantee. I kept trying, hoping to not have to use my single rare candy to go up to level 74 since the level is so close. But I just keep losing to the Gengar. This is the first Gengar. So I use my singular rare candy, level up to 74, and then try again. Even with the additional level, I just barely don't have enough speed. I am tied with the Gengar. That is a major difference though. I could move first, but Gengar can also use Confuse Ray on me, Hypnosis, mess me up, then spam Psychic, and knock Hitmontop out. Honestly, this fight is not going well. I get put to sleep multiple times, get critical hit by Psychic, which does not knock Hitmontop out, but it doesn't even matter. I've had a total of 6 resets now, and Agatha is just not happening, so I'm gonna black out here, letting all my HM users faint. I should have deposited them. There's no reason to have them in my team right now. Making it through the league again, I level up to 75 on Bruno, and then I can use my single rare candy, which I reset before using, to go up to level 76 for Agatha. Here's the thing, I might outspeed the first Gengar now with 174 speed, but I'm slower than the Crobat and the final Gengar. So I've solved one problem, but still 2 remain. In order to set up with bulk up, I need to tank one Psychic in the process, after using one of my berries likely on the first turn. I've had to choose a Person Berry instead of the Chesto Berry or Lum Berry. I have to pick either Hypnosis or Confuse Ray, and I decided to counter Confuse Ray since its accuracy is better. Then at +2, at level 76, I am able to one-shot the Gengar, so I move on to the Crobat for the first time, and Air Cutter is doing decent damage, chipping away at me, but Rock Slide has enough to one-shot. She sends in Misdreavus next, I go for Rock Slide, knocking it out in one turn, and then the final Gengar hits the field. Here's the thing, it's faster, it goes for Psychic, and Hitmontop faints. I tried so many times to make this work. Maybe the first Gengar is going to miss Hypnosis multiple times, and that will give me full health for the final Gengar and the ability to survive its Psychic. But as I attempt this over and over again, I continue losing to the first Gengar. I want everyone to realize here that Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee did not have this problem because their base speed stats are slightly higher, whereas Hitmontop is just low enough in terms of speed that it's falling apart. I think if I ran this thing again, I would go with a nature that boosts speed and lowers special attack, because that would solve Agatha here and make the entire second league attempt so much more smooth. But for now, I've got to black out again and come back in at a higher level. This time level 79, which gives me 181 speed, just enough to move first against the final Gengar. The thing is, I've kind of run out of berries at this point. I don't allow myself to use pickup users during these solo challenges, so I'm just stuck here with leftovers, waiting for Hypnosis to miss on the first Gengar. This takes so long. It is so frustrating. Also, at level 79, I cannot one-shot the first Gengar with Rock Slide. I started realizing that maybe going for Rock Slide immediately though, causing a flinch, might be the best play. My thought process was, I can set up on the Golbat, which follows, because it's going to be using Air Cutter, which is a physical move. Although, then it just gets a critical hit right away, doing more than half to Hitmontop. I get set up to +2, knock out the Crobat, which is nice, and I move on to the Misdreavus. With +2, I can one-shot, and that leads to the final Gengar. Do I have enough to one-shot? And the answer is no, I don't. Just barely, and Gengar does not flinch using Psychic. Hitmontop faints. Okay, with +3, I'm going to be able to do this. Well, not if I'm confused, hit myself, and Misdreavus gets to use Psychic. At long last, I make it to the Gengar with +3. This is the final Gengar. I go for Rock Slide, and I knock it out. Okay, we've finally done it. After 20 resets and 2 blackouts, Hitmontop is able to finish Agatha. And the speed problems just continue in the next battle, because the Aerodactyl has 208 speed. Because I haven't used Substitute in this playthrough, holding on to Return turn for far too long, I'm not able to manipulate the Gyarados into spamming Thunder Wave. I thought that setting up once with Bulk Up and then using Rock Slide would be enough to get by it, but it's not. So I get paralyzed here, ruining my speed stat. By the way, it's not yet calculating on the overlay. That is something I need to add starting in 2025. Even with the status condition, I get so close to making it through this battle, but in the end, the Kingdra has just enough to finish me. What it eventually takes to defeat Lance is a flinch from Rock Slide. I knock the Gyarados out. This happens in the very next battle, which was convenient for me. With no status condition, even though I don't one-shot the Kingdra, I get enough attacks in, and eventually crit, moving on to Lance's final Pokemon. It's Dragonite, it's a flying type. It does survive Rock Slide, but Outrage doesn't do enough damage because it's special, and with that, I defeat the Dragon type specialist. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the champion is also brutal. He's so bad. Okay, so Heracross is first. It's gonna go for Rock Tomb and lower my speed, causing more speed problems in this battle. Just for reference, I started the fight with 183, and after one Rock Tomb, I have 122. Alakazam has 181 speed. That is 2 less than my starting speed value. So if I want to move first against the powerful Psychic type, I need to not get hit by Rock Tomb from the Heracross. But as you can see from my damage, I'm doing less than half to it from each hit. So I need to set up Bulk Up, which means it's gonna use at least one Rock Tomb. While I am able to knock it out, I move on to the Tyranitar, which I'm faster than, but then Alakazam comes in and just knocks me out with Psychic. This time it doesn't have Future Sight, so I can't luck through this like I did last time. I tried the inverse strategy here, going for Bulk Up first to improve my attack, and then return to hopefully one-shot the Heracross, but it's not enough damage and I get my speed lowered. Then Mega Horn does massive damage with a critical hit, and I decided to reset. Okay, next fight I make it to the Alakazam. This time I have +2 and I have -1 speed, but I have green health, and I am able to survive a Psychic. The problem is, I have low health for the remainder of the battle. Also, a Sandstorm is up and it's never going to go away because Sandstream, Tyranitar's ability, sets this up early into the battle. This chip damage counters out the leftovers, and I can't do enough damage to one-shot the Executor, so Giga Drain is the end. In the next battle, I make it by the Executor because I set up my attack and defense way more to +4. But then the Charizard comes in, outspeeds, and knocks Hitmontop out anyway. So it's not even viable to set up and take the speed drop. I need to preserve my speed stat. What this means is I have to reset over and over again until Rock Tomb misses. Also, sometimes the Heracross just hits me with counter and one-shots, so that's nice, I guess. Hitmontop felt dominant until the original champion, and now in the post-game, with Agatha, Lance, and the champion, it has completely fallen apart. I could have improved Lance with Substitute, but that would have made this battle harder because lacking return for the Heracross is just unacceptable. I think if I reflect on my entire play, I should have taught return only here at the very end of the game, and ran Substitute and Bulk Up despite these moves filling similar niches throughout the majority of the mid and late game. Brick Break and Rock Slide can manage on their own as offensive moves, especially when paired with Bulk Up. Eventually, with a total of 29 resets, I make it by the Heracross and move on to the Tyranitar. Here is where I'm going to set up Bulk Up. Then with my speed stat intact, I figured that I was going to sweep, but no, Tyranitar chooses Thunderbolt and paralyzes Hitmontop. I couldn't believe that. I genuinely stood up and let out a small scream. Like, what? You're gonna paralyze me after I got by with no speed drop? Fine. Anyways, this fight ends in a loss as a result. In an absolute miracle, I make it back to the Tyranitar without a speed drop in the next battle, so I'm able to set up Bulk Up here and try again. This time it goes for Thunderbolt, but it doesn't paralyze. As a result, with my speed stat, I am just barely able to squeeze through the rest of the fight, surviving Sandstorm damage with the leftovers. And Hitmontop clocks in with a second league attempt of 39 minutes and 7 seconds, with 30 resets, 3 blackouts, at level 81 with a game time of 5 hours and 41 minutes. Okay, let's bring up the post-game tier list. This was a dismal performance. Before that though, I'm gonna thank everyone who supports me. Thank you so much. It really does mean the world to me. You are the reason I can do things like Daily December. I am able to dedicate all of my time to this because of the financial contributions of my amazing audience. If you want to support the channel and make sure that events like this continue into the future, click the join button below or click on the Patreon link in the description. Okay, so Hitmontop is not as bad as Hypno in the League follow-up. By the way, the reason Hypno had problems was also Agatha due to speed. It had a time of 43 minutes and 13 seconds, so Hitmontop is a little bit better than that, earning being the only placement in the D tier. Back in September, I released Spinda in Pokemon Emerald, and that video for me was a good chance to examine speed mechanics within that game. Specifically the fact that speed really isn't that important in Pokemon Emerald. Running speed lowering natures is almost always a good idea if your Pokemon has around base 80 or above speed. If it's a little bit lower than that, then speed neutral is going to be more than enough. But in Pokemon FireRed, especially with the second league attempt, I think that there is much more viability for speed raising natures, or at least speed neutral natures, until a higher speed threshold. With Hitmontop at base 70 speed, it just barely didn't have enough to get by Agatha. I could have done additional training to make up for this, and that's eventually what I had to do, but I would prefer to beat her at a lower level if possible. So like I said before, I think a speed raising nature could solve this problem. But for first attempts in Pokemon Fire Red and Platinum, I'm running hardy natures, so that wasn't viable for me in this playthrough. I'm looking forward to coming back and doing a 3-way versus video with these 3 Pokemon in Fire Red, all the way until the end of the second league to see how they really do stack up after I've learned a bit more about these games. That's the first video for Daily December. Tomorrow we're going to Pokemon Platinum. I am going to be rotating through the games in sequence, by the way, so you can always anticipate what's coming up next. Tomorrow we're going to get a bit thematic with a Christmas tree Pokemon, Abomasnow in Pokemon Platinum. It's a slow growth rate and has a terrible typing. I do not expect great things. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you then.